Hey, Joyful Journeyer, Anita Adams here, your host. And today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Kim DeYoung, who is passionate about supporting others to raise their level of consciousness about the choices they make. Kim is a choice coach, a facilitator, speaker, and author of The Book of Choice. Drawing on years of experience and research, Kim unveils a fresh approach to decision making that will transform your way of thinking. In her book, she shares her comprehensive guide and choice mapping process to equip readers with practical strategies to navigate life's complexities, empowering them to make choices that align with their values and aspirations. Kim's deepest desire and passion is supporting others to have meaningful conversations about their choices. So let's begin by having one of those conversations now. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you, Anita.
Yeah, I'm delighted to have you here too. When we first connected, I'm like, wow, this is somebody that speaks my language, who I love the work that you're doing. And it's so interesting because there's so many comparisons and parallels with our work, and yet spoken in a completely different language. And it's exciting. I just feel like that we're both doing work that is making a difference in the lives of others. And the power of choice is such a great topic because we're making choices every single day, every single moment we're making choices. So it's such an important conversation to have. So let's dive in. Why don't we start with you telling us a little bit more about your book, The Book of Choice?
So, the Book of Choice, I published it last year, and after a 10-year journey of writing. And I was never someone who envisioned myself to be a writer. I just had an interesting idea that kind of wouldn't go away. And the idea was essentially, what happens as we make a choice and take action? How does our life unfold? And that idea caused me to look at a particular choice I had made years back. And I thought, what did unfold from that choice? And from that experience, I am visual. So I took a mind mapping software and captured all that came into my life in a 2-year window in this choice. And in looking back, I felt this immense gratitude of like, wow, had I not made that choice, look at all the people, opportunities, thoughts, experiences that would not have come into my life. But I also had another vantage point, which was, what if I made a new choice today and what becomes possible? Like it was this blank vista of possibility. And in showing that first map to a friend who asked me to do one for her, that led to a journey where I explored the choices of 29 people in my first year, which is now more than 10 years ago. And in that experience of digging deep with people to understand why they made a choice. And in this case, I was always looking back with them. Now I tend to look forward as well, but it was all let's look at a choice you made to divorce, to move, to take a class, to do something. And this deep place of inquiry and connection to understand things that they had not really thought about. Like the questions I was asking to learn about them were things that were off the radar. They'd not gone there. And then I was taking this information, which I was gathering from them, to craft a map for them, which gave them a visual perspective of something that they had done that they really had lost sight of. So it was a very powerful experience. But in speaking with all these 29 people over this year, I realized at the end of that year, I have something here. I have really interesting information that the world needs to know about. And that led me on the book writing journey. And it's what's beautiful about it is because I've been able to share the stories of so many people and their choices across all ages, all personal, professional relationship choices. It's very relatable. But at the root, what it is it's a book about what does it mean to be thoughtful and intentional about your choices and all of that.
Awesome. I've got so many questions. I don't know where to start. Okay, so choice mapping. That's what you're calling it, choice mapping. Can you define that a little bit more? Like I love it. Like I'm seeing kind of like a what do you call it? A tree of life and
Yeah.
a family tree with all these things. And I'm seeing like multi-universes that, if I took this choice, this is what all the things that could have happened. If I take this choice, this is, all of that. So how does one utilize that as a tool to help them?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is one that took me time to figure out how to communicate to the reader how to do that. Because when I began, choice mapping was my tool. It was my behind the scenes tool. It was the tool I would use if I said, "Hey, Anita, do you want to get on and explore either a choice you did make or want to make?" And I would be crafting a map for you. Never did I envision teaching it to anybody, and it really wasn't until one of my book editors came to me to say, I think people might be interested in this. But that then required me to observe, how is it that I do what I do so I can teach it. And initially, the book went through a few iterations, but interestingly, at one point, the way that I was describing it was so complex, people's heads would have exploded. Like, you never would have been able to grasp it. And it was through the support of a particular coach who said to me, "Wait a minute, you need to break this down so it's really Legos. Teach the process so that the reader sees you doing it and they see it accessible for themselves and they can apply it." So that was really what I did. So to answer your question specifically, choice mapping is a visual way to capture the details of a choice. And it can, again, be a choice you did make, a choice you want to make today, a choice you're exploring making in the future. And essentially, the map allows you to capture the question and answer process that you are having with yourself. And different than journaling, where, we've all journaled and written for pages and pages and pages, et cetera, often the key nuggets get lost in the words of a journal. In a map, the concept is to have your statements be more short, specific, and I call them nugget-like, so that the words really resonate. So as you are crafting a map, let's just say you like, I choose to write a book. That's a beautiful and a big choice. And now you begin to ask yourself questions like, why does that choice matter to me? And you ask and you answer and you ask and you answer and you follow the threads of that. And now let's imagine you come back to that map tomorrow, a week later, and you look at your words and you say, do those words really resonate? Are they truthful? And if not, you tweak your words until the map really speaks your truth. And then you can go down other legs. What could hold me back from writing this book? What are the fears, the limiting beliefs, the obstacles? And you follow that. Now you look at what could become possible. What's thrilling and exciting on the other side of that book? And you follow that. And if you're really excited, you could pull a friend in to support you with that component, someone who deeply cares for your work and could help you. And then you focus on, what are the actions I'm going to take? So at the root, that's the simplest part of what I call the exploration map. That's the core map that I teach people to use. And in theory, what it's supporting you to do is to become your own coach. Because in one map, as you flesh out the answers to all of these questions and truly go as deep as you want. I mean, I've got maps that expand and expand and expand because the first starting question really just became a jumping off point to continue having a dialogue. And it's an opportunity to have a dialogue with yourself. And one of the things that I've experienced, having mapped now for 10 years, more than, is I can go back to past maps, either maps of choices that I had made or was making in the moment. And because I was so conscientious to ensure that the words spoke my truth, they still do when I go back. And I can understand, oh, I see why I made that choice. Or even very interestingly, if you are making a choice, let's take the book example, like I choose to write the book, and now you're in 6 months writing the book and you're not feeling it, like you're off kilter. Well, you can go back to your map to see, did something change? What shifted? Did what I say is possible not feel possible anymore? Am I being pulled back by the limiting beliefs and the fears? Like, it gives you real information to say, do I just need to, what's it going to take for me to get back on track with that choice? Or is there a course correction that I need to make? Is there a shift? And it gives you kind of control over what it is that you're doing with your life. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it sounds really powerful. And what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's an incredible tool to help you develop the skill of becoming a conscious choice maker. Right. Okay.
That is, you summed it up gorgeously in a nutshell. That really is it.
Yeah,
Really is it.
awesome.
You know, I'll tell you a funny behind the scenes story, which was when I had completed the book, I had about 10 friends read the book as beta readers to give me their feedback. Was it clear? And one woman shared something with me. I really valued her advice, but she said, Kim, I love your book, but I'm not sure why I care. Why do I care about choice mapping? And the book is not just, why do I care to look at my choices? Why does it even matter? And at first, to get that type of feedback when, you know, I'm ready to hit send was a knife in the gut. However, I really heard what she said and took her words to heart. And I thought, why do we care about our choices? Like, why does it matter to us to look at our choices? And the truth is, it's so that we can live a more thoughtful and examined life and be in charge of where it is that we're going. That's really the answer of like, why does it matter for us? And what's beautiful is not only why does it matter for us as women at this stage of our life, why does it matter for our kids? Imagine teaching this
Yeah.
to the next generation of emerging adults, of high school students, college students, post-grads, as they are beginning for the first time to make choices on their own, and they're navigating, is it a bad choice, good choice, will it be the right choice, all the issues, all the things that we all navigate as we step into making choice. And to have this tool so that they can be more thoughtful and say, you know what, I've thought through the components of my choice and I'm making the best choice I can today with who I know I am today. And should things change in a week, a month, a year, I will revisit it and I will course correct.
Awesome. Hats off to friends who are honest and give us that kind of feedback and help us get the clarity we need so our message is more powerful out there. So good on that. You said something about good choices and bad choices. Do you think there is such thing as a bad choice?
I actually don't. I really
I thought
don't.
we might be aligned with that as well. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that.
Yeah, my reasoning is that there's always a lesson in the choice and it's up to us to find it. Like, for example, I had a circumstance. I was in a meeting and I learned of an 18-year-old young man who had plagiarized a paper using AI. Now, probably a bad choice, you know, the kid got expelled, etc. And I've not met this boy, but I think about him often because I thought, if he doesn't address what happened in that choice, he's going to carry the baggage of that until he's a 50-year-old man. And likely that will show itself in many unfortunate ways. Versus if he were to say, you know what, it wasn't the best choice, not so smart. How can I make amends? How can I heal? How can I learn from it so that it doesn't trail me until I'm 50, so that I can see what I did that maybe if I were wiser in that moment, I might have done differently. So that is just something I so wholeheartedly believe. And as well, I also know that when I think of looking back at our choices that we have made, I feel like at the simplest, we can look back with regret or look back with pride. And we all have choices we look back with regret. So the question becomes, how do you go back as your adult self to look at some of those choices with the compassionate, wiser eyes that you have now, to both learn from it so that you show up the way that you want today?
That is totally on, showing up how you want to be today. You know, I look back at some of my choices in life, and there were some pretty shitty choices that I made that just about, well, destroyed my marriage. And it was, I'm not I don't look back and go, I'm glad that happened, but I look back and go, wow, I really learned a lot about myself, and I learned about the woman I want to be
Mhm.
from the bad choices I made,
Yeah.
and my husband the same. He looks back at the choices he made that also hurt our relationship, and says, I want to be this type of person. And now I'm going to make choices to be this type of person. And so we can pull back and look at those bad choices that help us inform who we want to be in the world today. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. I
great.
remember when I was dating after I'd been married, after I was divorced, and I remember thinking, in theory, I want to meet a man who has recovered from some of the challenging choices he made and has done the work
Yeah,
and
done
come
the
over
work.
the other side. I want that man. The man who may have hit rock bottom for assorted reasons of why, but chose to do the work, to
Yeah.
heal, to acknowledge, to own, and then step across to the other side. Like that's who
Yeah.
I was looking for.
Absolutely. And those are the relationships I want to have with people in the world, or people that are willing to go inward and do the work on themselves. They're the people that are interested, interesting. And
Yeah.
and that's who's on the show, right? Like the people that tune into the Joyful Journey are people who are interested in stepping into the best version of themselves. People who are willing to go into those dark corners and look at the mistakes, look at the choices that they've made, and think, okay, how do I make better choices in the future? How do I step into that best version of who I know I can be? And it's
Yeah.
a beautiful journey, right? It's a really
Yeah.
beautiful
So
journey.
much.
So let's talk about obstacles and how do we overcome some of those obstacles when trying to make intentional choices?
One of the things that I love doing with people, and this is specifically map related, two components of the map, and they're actually two opposing components, are what are you scared of and what do you want? Like what's possible? And in theory, we all have fears that could hold us back. And I often, when I'm working with a client who's creating their map, will really call them on the things that they say are obstacles, kind of like, is that really? You may say, I'm scared to put I want to write a book, but I'm scared of what other people will think. Now, that's not an invalid fear. However, if I were to challenge you on it, I might say, do you really, if this book matters that much to you and you know the possibility of what this book can do for people in the world, are you going to let that fear of what people think get in your way? And that becomes a way to have an honest conversation with yourself of like, the fear is still there, but I'm not going to let it hold me back. Um, I think it's a lot. I'm a big believer in looking honestly at the limiting beliefs that hold us back and assessing like where can you change the language? How can you shift something that is limiting you to something that is more empowering for you? Um, Sometimes like I recall having a specific conversation with a woman probably in her mid 50s, had 3 kids, was looking to step into some new choice of being a speaker, something in which she was out there. And the real that question of, will they like me, will they like, I said, you're 55 years old, like, are you really that worried of people not liking you? And if so, are you willing to let that fear keep you from doing what you care about doing? So I think it becomes an opportunity. I think when you're really clear on what matters and what's exciting and what's possible, it can pull you through a lot of the fear.
So it's about getting clarity on what it is that you really want, and then you can make a choice based from that place, standing in a clear vision of who you want to be and the life you want to create.
I think I mean, the word you just stated, the word, it is clarity. It's like the more information you have, the more capable you are to make that decision. Like if you're only sitting in your fears, it's easy to move forth. But if you've got your fears mapped out, plus you've got what's exciting and what's possible, and this is where I brought up the idea of the friend. If somebody who loves you has supported you to think what's big for you and possible, because they're going to think bigger than you can for yourself, and now you're kind of sitting with the foil of both what could hold you back, what could pull you forward, it's a little easier to step forward into the future.
That's super interesting. So it really is like mind mapping, isn't it? You taking an
It is
idea
mind
and just,
mapping. It
okay,
is.
right, right,
It
right.
is.
And then seeing all the possibilities. Um, is the best place to start to look back at past choices and examine the choices and why, and then to maybe circle common fear or common themes like fear of um fear of judgment, fear, whatever it is, and then see what that the commonality may be that then can help you make informed choices in moving forward.
I think if somebody were interested in dabbling today, let's just imagine somebody's listening to it. They're like, I kind of want to take a pass at or experiment with this. I would say, very simply, start with a choice you want to make today. That's the simplest. Start there. I choose to move. I choose to take a new program. I choose to embark on a new friendship, whatever it may be, and ask those questions. That sort of is a beginning way to like kind of step your feet in. There is no doubt there is an immense amount of value to go back and look at your past choices. I mean, it took me many, many, many different maps to look at choices made between 20 and 50 of like assortment, personal, professional, relationship choices. And there is an enormous value to doing that. And I certainly recommend that for the person who is, the soul searcher, the person who really wants to understand, why did I do why I do? Where did that lead? I just as an example, I mentioned that the map we're talking about is called an exploration map, but I teach two other maps. One is called a people map, which kind of documents how you know who you know in your life, which is a beautiful map from a place of gratitude to understand how you know each other. So if I were to look at a people map with you included, I met you because of Donna. I met Donna because of somebody else. So just the fact that you are connected to Donna, a dear friend for me, like elevates you in my world because of
Right.
where you came. And I love thinking about that. So that's one type of map. But the other one, very special map, is something called an unfolding map that really, and this you can do past or present, allows you to say, okay, I made this choice. What's come from it? And this is the first one that I was describing at the beginning of our conversation. What are the people, the things, et cetera. So I was able to look back at my past of a choice that I made at 20 and say, what came from that choice to study art history? What did that lead me to do? What jobs, what people, what connections? And to watch it expand over decades. One choice, or if you think about the choice to go to a particular college, and you think, oh, I met my best friend. From my best friend, I met my husband. From my husband, I met this. You realize like, oh my goodness, had I knocked onto the college, the whole different path. I mean, it's just another way to look at your life.
Right. And how does that serve you today?
How does looking back on that serve? Oh,
Is that a big question?
it's a fascinating question, actually, because I think it serves me from the perspective of deep personal understanding.
Okay.
I think I personally am on a quest of just personal growth and development, and to really understand the components, I think is very helpful. Another way that I will use an unfolding map in current time, which is quite fascinating, is as a manifestation tool. So let's just go back to you with the book. I choose to write a book. And now you've done the exploration map where you've gone into the depth of the questions, but the unfolding map could give you an opportunity to play of like, oh, when I put my book out, I'm going to have this connection and this person's going to lead me here. And I know I want to have my podcast, and my podcast is going to link to this, to this, to this. And you just begin to dream out loud in a
Okay.
map, capturing what you dream of. Now, you can have two concurrently. You can have one that's the dream and the manifestation, and then one that's the actual of like what is showing up. And
Right.
it allows you to become more aware of your life, to like notice the details of your life more clearly.
Will it also give you a roadmap to fulfilling dreams? So you see, like, again, let's use the book. I want to write a book. I've written a book. Now I start to think about the connections or the things that can open up for me. And I write them and I get excited about, yeah, being on Oprah Winfrey. Do I then see that this is how I can potentially get to that point?
Well,
Or
yes. I think One thing that I truly believe is the power of action, which leads to momentum. So
Absolutely.
everything begins with action. But first, you must have the choice. From the choice, you now take action. So if your vision is to have lots of visibility, for example, well, there are some action steps you're going to need to take. Look at you now. You've got a podcast. You are out there. You are on the way to visibility. If you wanted this podcast to get picked up and more visibility, what might you do? There might be other actions. So then it becomes like, are your actions in alignment with where you want to go? And the gorgeous part that I've experienced with regard to taking action and momentum is there's a component when you take action. That's the masculine energy of you moving towards the doing of something that you want. And when you take action, there's also the synchronistic component of the things that just begin to happen. Like, that you started writing your book and you started doing things, and all of a sudden you're getting connected to this person, this opportunity is showing up, you're popping onto that website, you're listening to that webinar, that's leading you to something else. Like, now the world is opening, and it's opening because you took the first step.
Absolutely.
And that's another key magical piece of this whole process.
Yeah, beautiful. I guess I'm seeing the map as a way to help clarify the actions that one might take.
Absolutely. It is absolutely a piece. It's where a few side benefits of the map are using it with someone you love, who you want to connect with. So imagine wanting to have a deep connection with someone and you guiding them through a map as a way to have that dialogue with them. It becomes a beautiful tool. This is something that I'll be launching within a year-ish, is the opportunity to certify coaches and therapists so that they can bring this tool into their practices as yet another way to gather information about their patients and clients.
Right. Very cool. And it sounds like it's something that pretty much anybody can use. Like
anybody can use. Yeah. It's, I map out, not no pun intended, but I share the basics of it. But the truth is, it's a very forgiving process. At the least, it starts with these key questions that you begin to ask, and then you go as deep as you want with it. And it's really, I share it using a mind mapping software. I've seen people draw in journals. I've seen people bullet point it. I've seen people use sticky notes. Now it just becomes like, okay, what works for you? How do you take the concepts of what I'm teaching and apply it to yourself?
Right. Awesome. I understand that you've got a gift for the Joyful Journey, or to help them along this way. You call it the Choice Quiz. Can you tell us a little bit about that gift?
Yeah, that is one of the things I discovered in this journey is that there are many different decision-making styles. There are those that have an idea, they move forward. There are those that deliberate quite a bit. There are those that stick their head in the sand, those that would call themselves quite indecisive. And so I created a quiz that supports you to understand what your style is of decision-making. And then after completing the quiz, you get a pretty complete write-up, which tells you the strengths of your decision-making type, as well as some opportunities for growth to enhance some of the qualities that you may not have in that decision-making style.
Awesome. I love it. Great. Well, we'll include that link in the show notes for people to access. And what about your book? Can they get that from Amazon or on your website?
It's accessible from my website. So at kimdeyoung.com, there's a clear link to the book, which links you directly to Amazon, or you can go directly to Amazon.
Awesome. Very cool. We'll make sure we include the links for people to find you. Thank you so much, Kim. I really enjoyed this conversation, and the power of choice. It's within our power, which is super exciting. So very cool. And Joyful Journeyer, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a comment, a review, give it the thumbs up, share it with somebody. All of that helps our show reach more people and get the word out about conscious living. So thank you for tuning in, Joyful Journeyer, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.